Welcome to Flash Frights. You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast. Flash Frights. One director that has made a big impact, and that's Alfred Hitchcock. Vertigo, Strangers on a Train, North by Northwest. And when you think about what he contributed to film, what he contributed to like capital F in filmmaking, and the footprint of Hitchcock goes very, very long, and his shadow casts very, very far. And I was able to check out Psycho, 1960s Psycho, at the Full Moon Cinema in Nashville. And I think especially in seeing the original Psycho with a full house, the demographic of the audience skewed younger, which I appreciated because I thought it would skew older for a 1960 black and white film.
Have a quiet little motel, when in fact it has now become known as the scene of the crime.
Do you have a vacancy?
Oh, we have 12 vacancies.
Isn't this the first place that looks like it's hiding from the world?
I think that we're all in our private traps, and none of us can ever get out.
Is anyone at home?
Oh, that must be my mother.
Is anything wrong?
Am I acting as if there's something wrong?
She's not missing so much as she's run away.
Put me down.
Mother! Oh, God! Mother! What are you running away from?
She looked like a wrong one to you?
It's not as if she were a maniac. She just goes a little mad sometimes.
She wouldn't even harm a fly.
Yes, we now know it as one of the first slasher films that really kind of informed the genre that we grew up with in the 80s. But for a younger audience, that movie's old and it's black and white. And I'm totally empathetic to that viewpoint. But it was neat to see younger folks in the audience and realizing that the movie, even though it is from 1960, still has that hold over the audience that you can't really dismiss it, whether it's black and white or old and may feel dated. It's none of that. It feels very modern. The tension is still there. And that goes to Hitchcock, the cast, the production, and what they were to put together to make something that still feels timeless.
Amazing that we're having these experiences to be able to do that.
I think it made me appreciate the overall plot of Psycho that much more because it still feels very relevant, where you have Marion Crane, Janet Leigh, who plays Marion Crane. And we all know, obviously, she's brutally murdered in the shower earlier in the movie. And that was like the big shock.
Whoa. Wait, what?
Oh, sorry. I thought I said spoiler alert, but maybe I didn't. But seeing the apparent protagonist die that early for a theater audience in 1960 who had never seen that, shocking. That's one of the mainstays of this film. But her character in stealing the money from her employer, the $40,000, the emotional struggle she goes through from the logistics of taking the money, from seeing the opportunity, from being in a sexual relationship that's essentially the first scene in the movie in a hotel where they're just having like a lunchtime tryst. Oh no, next time we basically hang out, Sam, we're going to do it like with my parents' picture on the mantle and with my sister here so that we can have a respectable dinner together. Okay, that feels very modern.
Do you know what I do about unhappiness? I buy it off. Are you unhappy?
Not inordinately.
I'm buying this house for my baby's wedding present. $40,000 cash. Now that's not buying happiness. That's just buying off unhappiness. I never carry more than I can afford to lose. Count 'em.
I declare.
I don't. That's how I get to keep it.
The desperation that people can feel, especially when they have economic challenges, and having an opportunity of stealing $40,000 to, get you out of those challenges, out of those struggles. That all makes a lot of sense. Watching a theater audience full of people where that was so relevant that didn't change. The brutality of the murder is still there. It's still shocking, even though we all know it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
But it wouldn't have been altered or made better if it had been made in the 1980s, in the heydays of slashers, where for sure we would have seen more. It would have been the shower scene in, The Prowler with Tom Savini. No. This is still relevant. It still hits hard. Audiences were still reacting, and you're just reminded, I was reminded, this movie still works.
Maybe Brian De Palma aside, if this is in the 80s, you don't get that amazing shot, the camera work of like the slowly twisting camera around Janet Leigh's eye. And I don't know, because I don't know enough about the film, if this was Hitchcock's intent, but he was taking like stuff that he had done so well before, character driven stuff. Like you were just saying, like a lot of this is just, it's about like the characters and putting them in these situations. But then he takes that and he drops like almost like a quickie, low budget horror element into it. Take the chessboard and just flip it and just, throw all the pieces aside to just like whatever your expectations were going in as to what he had done before in these type of films. He was kind of taking something and be like, oh, I'm going to introduce this now proto-slasher horror element that you haven't really seen before. And I'm also going to just completely fuck up what everyone has been to this point conditioned to how a story is going to progress. I've introduced who you think is going to be the protagonist. I've set her up with this moral quandary. I mean, yes, she's having the affair, she's having the tryst, she's stealing the money. She, after having a conversation with Norman Bates, realizes the error of her ways and is going to go back and, okay, I'm gonna make things right. And then midway through the movie, she's dead. Certainly no one did it before. I don't think many directors and filmmakers have even tried to do anything like that since.
This is obviously a product of 1960s. This was based on Robert Bloch's 1959 novel. If I remember right, in one of the behind the scenes thing, he had like an administrative assistant, Hitchcock did, and he had heard about this, and he was talking about how Paramount would get coverage. And I guess that's a term that's used in the industry when a successful book or a book that's starting to get successful is out there, and maybe you might want to do a film adaptation of it. So the studio probably gets a young intern to read it, put together some notes, that gives it to their boss, who gives it to their boss, who gives it to their boss, who narrows it down to 2 bullet points. And if those 2 bullet points can sell the studio, in this case Paramount, to make the film, all right, now we got to get the rights for that. And I guess Hitchcock had heard enough about this book. He kept asking his administrative assistant, has Paramount done any coverage on this? And she just kept replying, no. And I guess while he was flying somewhere, he literally just picked it up at the airport on the flight, read it, and by the time he'd landed, he just calls an administrative assistant. Okay, last time, do we have any coverage on this? Did somebody read it? And she's like, no. And he's like, good, I already did. Go get the rights.
I think Mr. Hitchcock was at the end of his contract with Paramount, and he had already moved to Universal. And I don't think they were pleased with that idea. I don't think they had a great deal of interest in a low-budget film, especially when he had gone to MGM and done North by Northwest, and now he was at Universal. And this was, I think, the last of his contractual obligation to Paramount. So Psycho was a unique motion picture in the fact that it was a Paramount release, a Shamley production, made at Universal Studios. Shamley Productions was owned outright by Mr. Hitchcock.
Even he financially and technically, production-wise, was still banking on making a small film where he could take risks.
That's exactly what he wanted to do. He said, first of all, I cannot make this picture in color because it will be too gory. Secondly, I want to make it as simply for as little money as possible, and I'm going to use the TV crew. And that's what he did. He used the crew that was working on his show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and he used them for Psycho.
Sitting in the audience and seeing Marion Crane show her bra not once but twice. The fact that she steals the money, the fact that Norman Bates dresses up as his mom. I think this is one of the first, if not the first, showing of a toilet in a movie. You unpack all of that, and again, for a modern audience, none of that matters because we've seen toilets and we've seen women in bras. We've seen women take off their bras. This is not new.
Yeah, and it's tough sometimes because, you know, you and I are the types that will try to place ourselves into the mindset of like someone watching that in the time period. But, you know, everyone's going to experience it their own ways. But I'm curious, you know, were you tuned into audience's reaction as the movie was going on? Was like there anything, you know, that you made note of like them reacting to a scene or to a shot or something like that?
I think it does a really good job of doing something that you've always kind of talked about that I've always been very jealous of like being able to lose yourself in a movie as a theater goer. I always kind of still see a movie at home or in a theater with a little bit of the wannabe filmmaker's eye where I'm like, I'm still like looking at where are all the wires? Like I want to see the end of the screen. Whereas you've been able to talk about how, especially a well-told story, you're able to kind of lose yourself in it. And I think that's what I did see. I saw an audience that by their reaction seemed to lose themselves in this quote unquote old movie.